moment in contemplation of the day that we're celebrating. The day that we call Independence Day. I actually often call it Kaivalya Day or Moksha Day. Kaivalya in Sanskrit means, it does mean our ultimate freedom, but it also means independence. I think it's a whole different idea of independence than, the Declaration of Independence that was signed back in 17 whatever. But the independence of a Kaivalya actually means independence from karma, independence from our egoic self. And that independence is what brings us moksha, freedom, liberation. Liberation while alive, God realization. So close your eyes and just contemplate for a moment on how, at whatever level your mind takes this in, or your body takes this in, your feelings, your sensations, your heart opening to the sense of a freedom from the constant impingements of mind and from the constant swirling maya, the world of action and reaction. The world of where one thought leads to another thought and leads to another thought, which leads to a judgment, which leads to a reflection, a memory, which leads to a concept. And just try to feel into Kaivalya, independence from that constant thinking and reacting, and the constant seeking for one pleasure or one moment that is a relief from suffering or sorrow. Because even our seeking for freedom is a karma in a certain way. It's an action in a certain way. So really, the invitation is an invitation to just stop and rest in the stillness of the heart. So take a moment and don't push it, but see if you can't find underneath all that busyness, all those thoughts, all those wishes, all those things you want to avoid. If you can't find just a moment of stillness, a moment of purity of being, that moment can be so brief in our world of time and space that we barely notice it. It passes us by in the whizzing of all our thoughts, sensations, and feelings. But that moment is a moment of freedom. If any of you saw fireworks last night, and I did from my deck because they let off fireworks at the school.
Were they?
Did you see?
I heard them.
Yeah, they were actually totally illegal, right? But they were beautiful. And if you did see fireworks, or if you can imagine or remember seeing fireworks, just think about that like initial burst, and that initial that moment is actually a moment outside of space and time. That when the comes right after the moment, and it's like, oh, everything seems to stand still. Now we know that that firework, that it's in motion, But in that moment, that instant, there's a sitting still. It's very interesting, it's almost funny or comical that in some of the sutras of yoga, especially of Tantra, they talk about these moments that are kind of like special gateways into moksha, into freedom, into independence, into stopping. And those moments are things like a sneeze, that moment of inevitability, an orgasm. And, you know, you can think of the fireworks bursting, kind of like an orgasm of light. Okay? And it's not that these scriptures are recommending that you go out and have sex, but that sex is actually, can be a gateway, an entry point into the deeper wisdom. That's one of the practices of certain parts of tantric yoga, certain schools of tantric yoga. But, you know, think about it like a sneeze. It's like that. Just at that moment, before it's come all the way out, you know, it's like there's just this moment of like not conscious, right? You're not aware of your individual self, your individual being. We can have moments like that when we're in beauty, in nature. We can have moments like that when we see somebody we love. We can actually have moments like that in a very frightening situation. Many people report that upon impact in a car accident, there's this moment of like eternity, no fear, nothing. Just presence, right? And so that's it. It's the moments of presence where our mind is not otherwise occupied thinking about itself, right? And our body is not otherwise reacting to itself. That we can find this independence, this freedom. So the good news is it's not as unreachable as we tend to think it is. It's right here, you know, for each of us in every moment. But maybe some of us need a startle, you know, to do it. Need an explosion in the sky. You know, this is why extreme sports, right? But it's right here. It's accessible. All we have to do, and this is one of the great teachings, or one of the big teachings of Gangaji and Adyashanti, some of the modern American teachers, masters, is we just stop. And then we go, yeah, right. Just stop this mind? Just stop this ego? And then the whole chain of thought starts. Yeah, well, that'll never happen. I don't know why she's talking about, yeah, just stop. I mean, what do I have to do? Kill myself to stop, I think. And, you know, and in a certain way, stopping is dying to the self. It's dying to the ego self. It's letting go of the ego self. And in truth, death is an opportunity for releasing into the greater self. I am not recommending that, however, as a strategy, because there's all kinds of karma that would come along with that. And next incarnation, oh boy, got a lot of knots to untangle. So just with that little bit, go ahead and tune in again. And just notice any element of stopping, even slowing. why can't we stop so easily? Why do we need to have a satsang and a meditation to help us to stop? Why do we need to see fireworks, hear loud explosions? And see, yoga would tell us because we're too busy wanting something else, desiring something other than all that is given to us in the present moment. That we are always, the term in yoga is rajas. We're always going after something. We're always going after a pleasure, or we're trying to avoid pain, is what psychology would tell us, rather than just accepting the present moment. And actually learning to not even define the present moment by pleasure or pain, but simply the experience of what is. But then, why would we not want to seek the pleasant? Right? Why would we not want to avoid the unpleasant? And yoga would tell us that it's partly because we're seeking the pleasures of the world, and they keep us bound in the world. Well, where the heck else are we going to go? We're in the world, right? So again, why not seek the pleasures of the world or avoid the punishments, so to speak? And I found in my readings this week, in this lovely book about Bhakti Yoga, Exquisite Love by William Mahoney, a couple of terms that I hadn't heard of before, read before. And the one term, Shreyas, S-H-R-E-Y-A-S, it's a beautiful term, and it has to do with seeking out the splendid. And the idea is that to not just go for the pleasant, but to go for the splendid, the luminous, the pure light, the pure love. And that, we tend to settle with the little pleasures, or we tend to settle, with feeling good about how we fixed up our yard, or we just went and had to put a new tire in our car and we're really annoyed, and so we drive through Starbucks or something like that, and we feel better. And we look at that as, oh, I just had this pleasure, and that balances out the stress, right? But Shreyas is basically saying that, we have choices. That we can go for that which is immediately pleasurable and, some immediate gratification. We can do whatever we feel like is important to do to avoid the pain, the suffering. We can scratch the itch. Or we can use our discernment to choose something even more splendid, which of course is our inner being, that we lose sight of because we're seeking and grasping after those things that are going to make us feel good momentarily, or we're planning ahead, 4 steps ahead of ourselves, 7 steps ahead of ourselves, doing the game of life, like a chessboard, where I'm delaying my gratification now so that then I will get the greatest pleasure. Instead of seeing the splendidness, the luminosity in the moment. So I spin my wheels, avoiding pain, or delaying something in order to have more gratification in the future. Sometimes even paying my dues, right, in the present moment in order to try to alleviate that pain. But all of it is planning, seeking, avoiding, going after something out there, other than, not now, not here. The splendid is inside of ourselves. And if I choose, after I've had like an annoying experience doing my emails, or, you know, finding out this is not happening and that's not happening and I have to pay more money for this and all of that, instead of getting so wrapped up in avoiding all of that and moving my bank accounts around and etc., if I choose just a moment to go into the splendid, oh yeah, right, I'm going to just back away from my computer, I'm going to go inside and everything's, yeah, it's fine. And it doesn't work that way. It takes a little bit more. But maybe I decide to move my body, to stretch it, to sing, to dance. I'm not kidding you. To go outside and take in the splendor of outside. Because we're getting that right now, aren't we? How wonderful. To take time to pet my cat. Those are the things that, if we make those choices, they're not freedom in and of itself, they're not kaivalya, they're not moksha, but they get us moving more in that direction. So if I can't go inward in this moment, if I can't stop in this moment and experience the total divinity, the total limitless love, the total freedom, then I can either get back to my onerous task on my computer, or I can take a breath, or I can go outside, I can move my body, you know, fill in the blanks, whatever it is for you. And that is not seeking yet another pleasure, you see. It's seeking something. It's like a practice that can remind you of the splendid, which is inside. So let's take a moment now and let your eyes close again. And I want you to just recall back to the last time, hopefully it was sometime today, excuse me, where you did just stop. Even if it was momentarily, or where you did make the decision not to continue your frantic searching or avoiding, but just to be. And okay, if there isn't a time today that you did that, think of the last time, any time that you remember. Well, maybe better yet, just think of what you'll do tomorrow, of what you might do tomorrow if you start getting yourself in all that frantic mind space. Give yourself some options. What for you elicits, evokes the splendid, the luminous, the pure, the sweet, the nectar, the light. And know that this is always a choice. Now, if what you're picturing is a trip to Baja, well, that is always a choice, but it's not going to be so easy to do. So instead, you just mentally feel the feelings that you have when you go to Baja. We just want a reminder, just a little reminder. Because whatever wonderful feelings you have when you get away to Baja or Maui or Bali or wherever you might go, all of that is inside. So when we truly stop, we don't have to go anywhere. As a matter of fact, that's the idea, is to not go anywhere.